Hi, it's Phil from Dirty Driveway. I thought I'd touch upon a common subject that I get asked questions about. I get quite a few emails regarding sort of setting up pressure washing business, and also for some tips on getting the best out of your equipment. So I thought I'd touch upon connections, couplers, couplings, various different words for them. I have here in front of me some different types of connections, and I'll go through what they are and the ones that I use. This is a common connector. It's predominantly known as a Karcher fitment. It's M22 in the end here, and it just simply screws on to if it was a Karcher, it would screw onto the end of your hose from here, and it would screw into the actual washer itself. But these Karcher connections are actually very handy if you're using a professional grade washer, as it can make your connections a lot easier and quicker. And by using this type of connection, especially on the end of a gun or a trigger, it enables you to connect lances to the end, various different types, whether you've got bent ones, long ones, might have different nozzles on the end that aren't quick release. So it enables you to connect a lance straight into here. I'll come back to that later. What I'll do is I'll start off with connections to the actual gun or trigger. I'm gonna refer to it as a gun. Some people call it a trigger. They're called both. So what I use is a quick release on my washer. It's probably quite common. They're 3/8. So it would use these types of male connectors. These would go onto your gun or your trigger, and then you would use a 3/8 coupling, which will go onto your hose. So this is your hose, go on your hose. This would be on your gun. They are quite tight because they are quite big, and it just pops in like so. Nice firm fit. It's not going to pop off at you. Now, I've used different types of these over the years. This is, as far as I'm concerned, the best one you can buy. This is made by a company called Tema, or Tema Parker Rectus, but this one here is a Tema. I'm not sure if you can see it on here. That's a Tema 3810. They're Swedish. This is obviously mild steel that's been zinc plated. These use 2 O-rings. A lot of the other ones that you tend to find have 3 O-rings, but you'll find that with a twin O-ring, these will fit together a lot smoother, and there's less interference, less to go wrong. The O-rings are obviously replaceable. They will perish over time. You will end up finding that they'll start to start to split. So you can just replace them. They're a standard common O-ring. There are 2 different sizes in these Temas. The 3 O-ring ones will normally use two O-rings of one size and a slightly smaller one. And you can see I've got a bag here, just a couple of replacement O-rings. But you can buy these on eBay. Buy them in bulk. Buy them in big bags of 50 each. Always keep them on the van. You never know when one's going to start to go. Obviously, when they do start to go, they start to lose a little bit of the rubber, and it can make them a bit more awkward to get in and out. So like I said, these are zinc plated. You can buy them in stainless, but in this particular brand they're very expensive, and to be honest, when you're using it in a pressure washer, the chances are this will get dropped on the floor or dragged around, so your plating will start to chip off and it will start to wear away. There really isn't any point in spending, I'm talking hundreds, for a stainless version. You can pick these up. They're not cheap, but you can pick them up quite readily. And this is a matching Tema male connector, so these will go together. So you can buy these from other manufacturers, such as this one. This is a stainless steel one. I at one stage went through a phase of using a lot of stainless, but to be fair, they're not particularly great. I don't know whether it was just a manufacturing process, but I know good quality stainless steel connections for pressure washers are very expensive. Obviously the pro to using stainless is obviously it won't rust, it won't corrode. The problem you get with these zinc plated ones is because they're constantly going in and out of the coupling, the plating does start to wear very quickly. You are dealing with water, so once the plating starts to wear, you get a little bit of corrosion starting. So what I tend to do is just spray them with WD-40 or any kind of penetrating spray like that before you use them. Obviously it keeps the O-rings nice and lubricated. Don't use grease. I've seen sometimes when you buy these when they're brand new, the O-rings come greased, and so do the bearings. If you buy these and they've got grease in them, get rid of the grease. The reason for that is you're dealing with driveways, patios, there's a lot of grit and a lot of dirt, and obviously the grit and the dirt flings up and it ends up inside the ball bearings, and obviously with the connections you can see the grit ends up inside here, and if you've got grease in there it just sticks and it just becomes a grinding paste, and you end up flattening off the ball bearings. These are nice. This is a brand new one. These are nice and smooth. You can feel these with your fingers. They're nice and loose. So you just want to spray this with some WD-40 and spray the ends just to keep them nice and lubricated. So if you do buy these new and they are greased, just get a cloth, spray some WD-40 on it, and just keep wiping it and wipe out the grease. The O-rings will pop out if you want them to. So just pop them all out, try and make it as clean as possible, and then just lubricate it with some penetrating spray like WD-40. That's the best stuff. And obviously I just spray these down after I've used them just to stop the water from corroding the plating. I've tried these in stainless. They didn't last me long at all. Whether they weren't manufactured properly, it was the matching one of these. If I put that aside for a minute, you can see, I mean, these are very, very good quality, these Karcher Tema Rectus ones. I'm not sure if the camera will be able to pick it up, but you can see on the Karcher it's got a nice sort of radius, nice little bevel on the top there, and this stainless one hasn't. It's very sharp, so obviously the O-ring will pick up on that, whereas you see on this one it's got a nice little bevel, so the O-ring will just slide over it quite nicely. Same goes for this lip here. This has got a nice little bevel on it. This one is quite sharp. Moving down, obviously the bearings run in here on both of these, and again it's quite hard to see on the camera, but the Tema, it's nice and beveled, it's nice and rounded, whereas these are quite sharp. So obviously once the bearings are in there, you need to give it a good old tug to get these out, whereas I found with the Tema, as long as you spray them with some WD and keep the O-rings lubricated, these pop in and out quite nicely. I've never had one go on me. I change the O-rings quite regularly, just out of course anyway, just purely because they will go on you at an inconvenient time. I've also found with the stainless ones, they just don't seem to be as hard. So I end up with gouge marks or bearing marks in here, because obviously we are dealing with quite serious pressure. So you end up with like dimples all around the seating surface of this, and it makes them an absolute nightmare to get out. What I'll do is I'll quickly show you on the guns that I've got. This is my lovely Sutner. You can't really see, it's starting to, you can see the black marks obviously where the bearings run, ball bearings run, but it's not really, you can't really feel any marring on there. I've also got another gun. This is one, just a cheapie. It is a Sutner, but it's not as it's not my nice industrial one. And this one, they've been on there the same length of time, but this is a stainless one, and you can clearly see, if the camera will focus, the bearing marks. Just there. And I tend to find with these stainless ones, this little lip becomes very sharp and it ends up scoring up the inside just in there, especially when you push it in and out. It starts to score it all up and starts to shred the O-rings. So I don't like using the stainless ones. These ones are much better. I think you can pick up a pair of these. Obviously these couplers are more expensive than the connectors, but these are normally about £7 each. They're worth having a few, especially if you've got multiple guns. I always keep spares just in case. You never know when one's going to fail. They will fail eventually. They will start to go. They get, obviously the nature of the job, you do get grit in here. They do start getting a little bit grindy, a little bit raunchy. I mean, you can take them apart. If you pull them back, you can pop the little clip out that's in here. This little sheath then comes off. All the ball bearings will fall out. There's a big spring under there as well, which gives it the springy bit. You can take them apart, give them a good clean in. You can just check the condition of the races inside the main outer, and obviously if you can see that it's starting to pit, then obviously it's time to replace it. I mean, it should turn quite freely. If it starts to pick up or get really notchy, then you know they're time to replace. And they will start getting very, very stiff after a while, especially if you've got both parts that are starting to wear. You may find that when these are connected actually on the gun, that you won't be able to pull that back and disconnect it without giving it some grief with a hammer. And then you just check these and you'll know then that it's time to replace. I've had a pair of these on my washer all year and I've not replaced them. I bought 2 pairs at the same time. I've got more of these because I've got more guns, but I've not replaced these all year and they're still going strong. The stainless ones, I went through a pair in about 6 weeks, so I don't think they're hard enough. They're not really up to the job, not for what I use them for anyway. You can, if you want, you may find after a while that the bearings in these, they start to flatten, especially if you've get a lot of grit inside, and obviously they start getting a bit graunchy. The bearings start to get flats on them, and they won't turn, they won't move as smoothly as they should. If you find that, you can just replace the bearings. Good old eBay, and you'll find a bicycle supplier on eBay, and they all use these hardened steel bearings. These are actually stainless bearings. They're all hardened stainless bearings. These are 3/16. They're exactly the same size as the ones that go in here. So if you start getting flats on them, just replace them. These aren't expensive. You know, they're probably only a few quid for a whole bag. I think I bought about 100 of them. It probably cost me about 3 or 4 quid. So they're worth having, worth keeping. You know, you might be able to salvage one of these connectors because these will probably cost you about £25. So they're worth trying to recondition if you can. So yeah, it's all about saving a few quid. If you can get some bearings, you'll find these will last. These will last forever. But WD-40 is your friend. Okay, put them to the side. You will see that when these are connected, they're quite stiff at the moment because they've got no lubrication on them. That you don't really get much in terms of a swivel. They won't turn very easily. They're not designed to. The pressure that they're working under, they're not designed to. So if you are in need of a swivel, just buy a swivel connector for your gun, or buy a gun that's got a swivel connection on it. So yeah, going back to the other end, these are all different types of connections. So that was a 3/8 quick release. You can also get 1/4 inch. This will go on the end of your lance, exactly the same principle. These have only got 1 O-ring in them. So your lance would screw into the end of here, and then the male piece would obviously screw into a connector or go into your nozzle housing, so that you could obviously quick release stuff, similar to like the turbo nozzle that I've got here. It's got quick release, so you would then have this on the end of your lance, and it will just clip in, and you can obviously change these. I quite like using brass. They're normally either brass or they're mild steel. The mild steel ones do corrode, they do rust. As you can see on this is my turbo nozzle. This has got a mild steel connection on the end, it is due for replacement. But you can see, obviously, you do get rust, and you can see that on the end here, if it will focus, that the actual metal does start to chip away, and obviously you get the same bearing marks. This has done me about 3 years, so it is time to replace the end of this. This is connected to an inline filter, so obviously if you did get any bits that did chip away, it shouldn't affect the nozzle. So yeah, brass is pretty good. Brass is your best friend. It doesn't corrode like hard steel. So these are 1/4 inch. And obviously you get different types of connections. There's a few different ones. This is the M22. I love using the M22. I'll show you my gun again. What I do is I use an M22 on the end of my gun. Just connects in, so it's the same as one of these. And obviously you can get these in brass, male, female, whatever connection you've got. So that would just screw into the end of your gun, and then you can just screw your lance straight into the end. So your lance would have something like this on the end, so your lance would screw into the end of here, and that would be permanently attached to the end of your lance, and then you just connect your lance up and screw that in for a nice, quick and easy fitting. And by doing it this way, it saves you having to have permanently attached lances to your gun. So you just have a few different lances with different nozzles, or if you've got a turbo nozzle, or you're using a rotary patio cleaner, you can then just quickly connect your gun straight up. You haven't got to isolate your water because your trigger will obviously shut that off. So you can just unscrew that. Your lance comes away, new lance goes on. Again, there's O-rings in the end here to stop the water from leaking out. These are replaceable. They're the same O-rings that you get on the end of a common garden tap. There's a garden tap connector for your hose lock or clay bar, whatever you're using. So these O-rings around here, they're the same as the ones on here. They're all predominantly 1/4 inch. Again, eBay, you can buy them in packs. Just buy a massive pack of them, get 100 of them for about £5. Again, once they start to go, just whip them off, put a new one on. First sign of anything leaking, it's normally the O-ring. Just chuck a new one on. So when it comes to the connections, obviously this one here, that's a 1/4 inch to an M22. So again, your M22 Karcher fitting would go on the end. That would screw onto the end of the gun. There's just different ways of just converting. Your gun might be a female, but you want it to be a male, or vice versa. So all these connections do the same thing. These will go to an M22. And when it comes to connections to the end of your gun, like my gun here, these are obviously this from here in, it's stainless, and obviously then you've got a converter there to get your male on the end. So you'd need a 3/8 to 3/8 male in the middle, and then you end up with using they're called doty washers, or the bonded washers, which are these little kiddies here. They're just washers with like a seal on the inside. They're very, very good. Some people like using PTFE tape, but I find that starts to wear off after a while. These are really good. They seal quite well, so you don't get any problems. You can get them in 1/4 inch, 3/8, half, whatever size you're using. Again, eBay, pretty cheap. You can pick them up, a couple of quid for a pack of 10. They're always worth having. You never know when you've got to take them off. I always use on here, because this is more of a permanent connection, I always use blue Loctite on here. Don't use red. Christ, don't use red. I have used red in the past, and man, it does not like coming off. You'd need to use heat to get it off, and obviously then you risk melting the seals that are all inside your trigger assembly. So blue Loctite's good because it's not as permanent. You will be able to break that off quite easily. I'll do another video at some stage regarding triggers and guns. So this is the other cheap one I've got. Same thing here. Karcher connection on the end. This one's a bit bigger, as you can see. This gun is not a swivel gun. You pay more money if you want a swivel, but you can buy a connection, a swivel connector, that you just attach it in just by the converters or whatever you want to use. So this converter, there's quite a few converters on this gun actually. I think it's an M22 gun, so it goes M22 down to 3/8, then it goes down and down, and it converts into a male. There's quite a large connection on that gun, but it does give you the swivel on a non-swivel gun. So it means obviously your hose won't keep twisting itself up on you. One little tip I will share with you, going back to these connections, if you're cleaning block paved driveways, which I'm sure you will be doing, these are notorious for getting grit in. It's the only downside to these quick release connections. They're great because they're quick and they're easy. I've got on the end of my hose, I've got a ball valve, a lever ball valve on here, so I can isolate the water, and then obviously I can disconnect this without having to switch the washer off. These are notorious for getting grit inside, so you want to try and eliminate that or alleviate that as much as possible. Obviously, if you use the WD-40 thing, you can rinse them out when you're finished. It won't get all the grit out. I'll just reconnect this. So here's a little tip, a little trick that I've found. I was wondering for a long time, is there a way to protect this to stop the grit from getting in? And I found these. These are fishing rod bands, holders. Fishing rods go in there. You just tie them up. It keeps your rods together. You can get these in different sizes. This is the small one. You can get the big one. I've also tried this. This is actually a wrist support. You know, if you've got a dodgy wrist. Same principle, but this is made of neoprene. This is rubber backed, which is better. It really does grip. So you can get this one. This is was it NGT eBay again. They're about $4.50, and you get a pair. You get a small one and you get a big one as well. The big one's about this sort of size. As you can see, they're a bit bigger. But the good thing is that when this is on the hose, you use the big one, but you can actually wrap this around your connector. The big one's better. And it will actually protect the workings inside, all your ball bearings and stuff. So all the grit and stuff will end up splashing over the top of this little rod band. And then when you take this off, when you finish your job or you're changing, this is nice and shiny. It's all clean and it's good to go. So it really will, in the long run, for the sake of what these cost you, just buy a few of them. And obviously being rubber backed, you can cut these down to size. The big ones will wrap round several times. This is for the smaller end of a fishing rod. The bigger ones are for multiple rods or the large end. These will save you a few quid in the long run, because you won't have to replace these so often. I think a pair of these, especially the Tema ones, you can buy cheap ones for about 12 quid, but you get what you pay for, as I've said in previous videos. These Tema ones are about £30 a pair, upwards. I get these from a supplier, but if you can find them online, you'd be surprised actually how much these Tema ones will cost. So just by wrapping one of these around, especially if you're doing block paving, because you're going to get sand and muck getting thrown up, they could in the long run save you quite a bit of money. Because if you're paying, you know, 40 odd, £50 for a pair of these, and you're only paying a fiver for this, and this can be washed, so you can just stick this under the sink and just wash the grit out of it. And obviously being rubber, nothing's really going to stick to that. Just wrap it round. It takes 2 minutes. And I've been using them most of the year, hence the reason why my Tema connector has lasted me so long. Well, I hope this video has been informative, shed some light into some connections, and also make sure, you know, that if you are buying connections, I do prefer brass over plated, because they don't corrode. But just make sure that anything you buy is rated for your washer. These were supplied with something I bought, but these aren't strong enough. These are only 215 bar. I mean, they're probably fine if you're not using it on full power, but my machine's 250 bar, so I wouldn't want to fit these. I've just kept hold of them just in case, you never know, demonstrations, videos like this. So these are only 215 bars, but you can get them normally up to about 300. I think the ones that are actually on my gun, it does normally tell you on them what they are. This is a 280 bar, 4000 psi, so this is more than adequate for my needs. Well, I hope you found this video informative. Any comments, any questions you have, you can leave them below. Feel free to leave comments. I do answer best I can. There's a few of these there, just line them up. They're all quite good just to have in stock, you know, keep them on the van or keep them handy just in case you ever need them.